Welcome to the flow of money, real conversations about wealth, abundance mindset, and challenging old money stories. This is where high performance strategies meet financial intelligence. I'm Dave Gieselman. I'm a flow state coach, breathwork facilitator, and former chef turned high performance nerd. I work with leaders, creatives, and high performers to expand their capacity, regulate their nervous systems, and unlock clarity under pressure.
I am your co-host, Day. I am a financial advisor and wealth manager, often hired by people who want an additional set of hands to bring clarity to their wealth management discussions, efforts, and tools and approaches. And I'm super excited to work on this topic jointly because of so much of the work that Dave and I do together has an overlap in both of our specialties. And super excited to focus on this topic as a resource to the community. So, Dave, today we're going to talk about why you're afraid to talk about money.
That's a great topic because I have been afraid to talk about money.
Have you been afraid to talk about money in the past?
I have been very afraid to talk about money. As a matter of fact, when I met my wife Amy, who she was very financially literate, I was very financially fly by the seat of my pants,
Sure.
and having those conversations was real difficult. And so in I guess the question I would begin with is in your work with your clients where this is what you talk about all day, what kinds of money conversations do even successful people struggle to have?
Yeah, it's a good question. Because I think it's very easy for people who they are passionately interested and curious about how do I change my current money situation. There must be an easier conversation that happens on the other side when I have a lot. And I will tell you the conversations that I'm having in the intimate four walls of my practice, almost as a disclosure, is it almost doesn't matter the number of commas on the page, the amount of fear and difficulty and challenge that people have when they come to this conversation of money. And one of, I think, the interesting things that comes up is very often people are very specific about asking about money. What they're really interested in is a much broader conversation. It's not really the dollars in the account. It's all the other things that get attached to that to some degree. In our practice, we try to expand that. I'll give you a good example. Like when I was a kid, what I wanted to be when I grew up was rich, right? It was a very money specific answer because it seemed if you had more, you were more important, more powerful, got to do cooler things. Like they were people that I thought were absolute morons who had more than me. And like, I'm smarter, I'm willing to work harder. Like, how come that's not me? They have more, they're worth more, they're more. And so people will mix these things together where money and what that means to them becomes intertwined and really challenging and interesting ways to tease out what strategy should we pursue if they're asking about money, but what they really mean is control, flexibility, capabilities, the capabilities to gift or transfer or impact or kids or the types of tools or resources or goals that people have will shift based on the number of commas, but the energy, fear, shame, challenge to really uncover what's driving some of those things is very common up and down the wealth spectrum for sure.
So money, wealth, abundance, finance, we can call it, it's all energetic and it goes to safety. It goes to how other people see me. It goes to my future, my legacy, what I want, what I believe is comfortable, what I believe is safe, and what I believe is abundant. And so it's sex, it's reputation, it's everything, which is probably why it's hard to talk about because it touches so many aspects and it feels like it's a very simple subject. Money is pluses and minuses.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
simple, it's addition and subtraction,
Yep.
and yet it's complex because it's cultural, it's societal. It has how much I have means certain things to certain people.
Correct. Just as a simple example, right? Wealth that you have in the future, and I'm going to eliminate by and large, there's still money challenges and problems that folks who come to it through inheritance or surprises, right? They were They luckily found themselves at a dot com and all of a sudden they're worth $10 million, or they won the lottery or the genetic lottery, right? I'm going to take those off this for a second and talk about the self-made, right? I'm smart and capable. I worked over a long period of time and I have wealth in the future. I'm now 50. I have a large bank account, a large retirement account, a large home, a set of resources and control. That wealth in the future came from in the past, money that you made that you didn't spend, that you did something smart with that was going to produce value in the future. Doesn't really matter the strategy that you pursue. But if you go back to money that you made that you didn't spend, that decision in and of itself, how many decisions do you have to make from an identity, a role, a willing to forego today? The things that I buy and do today are expenses today. They are expenses against that ability to have wealth in the future. So for you to voluntarily choose to buy a cheaper car, take less vacations, have right to spend less today will create the ability to have wealth in the future. Very mathematical discussion, but the capability and the decisions around doing that more really have nothing to do with the dollars and cents, but really identity and my relative sense of value in the community. Am I safe in the community? I get kicked out of the community, right? Am I a contributing member? And what's my identity? And am I making decisions that reinforce that identity? And is that against this equation that you say you want wealth in the future, but that wealth in the future for most of us came from wealth that we earned in the past that we didn't spend, that we set aside in some fashion that was smart and intelligent and helpful. There's all sorts of tricks around that, but the difficulty around money, there's a lot of ways into that, but the capabilities around that really come at this from a bunch of different areas and make it super complicated to unpack for people.
So we're really back to the marshmallow test. Am I willing to delay what I want right now for money I don't spend, for the car, the better clothes, money to impress the girl, money for the whatever it is, now to do something with, employ some strategy with, so that I am building something for my future, for my legacy.
I have to imagine it's no different in your practice where somebody's looking to harness the exponential power of flow states, enter them more often so that I can create and accomplish more. To what end? What is the goal that I'm trying to accomplish? For many people, I imagine they come to you that if I can work on entering into flow states more often and be more productive, the outcome is something money related. Yes.
Always. It's always abundance. And really, it's not money related, is it's money accessible. Abundance and resources make it accessible, but it's really, I want to feel safe. So the outcome I want is to feel safe and free and like I have the lifestyle that I want. Really, it's if I were to really oversimplify it, I want to be able to take as many naps in a week as I want.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And if you got a 7 nap goal, right, over, let's say it's a 10 nap goal, because we're going to get a couple of double days,
Oh,
right?
2 a days are great.
The double days, right? If we're going to go 10 o'clock and noon, we're going to hit our little 20-minute naplet. There are things that need to be true in terms of resources that come in to cover your spending so that you can be okay to accomplish that goal. And as you find those capabilities that you have that will allow you to deliver value in exchange for resources, right? We go to work and we get paid, have a value or impact on people and they pay us for that, whether you're a musician or an athlete or an attorney or an accountant. You've developed a set of skills and experience that you offer up to the community that it rewards you with value. Right? If you can produce that over a large enough period of time, you might be able to buy back time for a 10 nap week, right? But the effort and the capabilities to do that will be driven to some degree based on some of your, hey, if you want, oh, I was with a power couple, husband and wife, in the business owners themselves, that the husband was really driven to accomplish a specific financial goal in a specific period of time. And I don't care what the number was. Let's say you want $5 million investable in 7 years, right? He's got the capabilities to do that. And then as we worked on things and a year went by, he realized that there's things that he wanted to accomplish, home, car, stuff. emailing and saying, hey, other than 5 million and 7, let's have 4 million and 10. Right. He was adjusting his goal because some of the things that he wanted to experience and have around him were impacting his goal. And it was less the math of the money and more, this is what I want to experience from a capability standpoint with the resources that I'm producing. And so some of the hang up can stem from that, right? The stickiness around resources. So I'm just off a call with a creator. This is a creative type who's experienced a delightful result. He's end up with a lump sum check in exchange for his creative endeavors. And to some degree, that's going to be the resources that he needs that's going to cover him for the rest of his life. He traded income for a lump sum check. In that process, from a creator standpoint, he's bought himself some capacity. And now the question is, does he now overspend that capacity and runs out again? And in 75, he's now doesn't have the resources to pay for the walker or whatever he's going to have in the future. And so his identity and role and capability, we're going to do the best that we can to build the resources. But if we lay out a plan and decides, screw it, I know I said I was going to spend X, but I'm going to spend Y, we got to be realistic to suggest, hey, if you want to live to 85, you might want to put down the bacon cheeseburger from a process standpoint. And in the wealth area, some of that can trigger very frustrated emotions that may be angry at a specific that is hard to, as a wealth manager, we're trained to be open and curious and listen, but that's hard for us to prescribe, right? That's,
Mm,
hey, I can take an x-ray and show you where the blockages are, but I'm not going to cook the kale salad for you. This is a different set of skills that they need to reposition somewhere else. And I think that comes up for you in blockages to flow state. Yes.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it looks like the things that I do that get in my own, where do I get in my own way? I say I want this, but my behavior doesn't back up that statement. The behavior that I'm in, I want, I want a life of travel. I want a good relationship. I want to my
Yeah. I want a 10 nap work week.
I want a 10 nap work week, but I'm blowing time scrolling Instagram. I'm doing a bunch of things that do not support that work week. And so I then have to ask, which do you really want? I see where your energy is going, and your energy is going, your time, your money, your energy is going in a direction that is contrary to what your words have said you wanted. And flow state comes with clarity. Flow state comes with really understanding and being able to put that focus behind one thing and have it not be diffuse, right? To be able to pinpoint, I want a thing, and everything that I do from 9 to 5 or whatever is in support of that single thing. So I watch behaviors, whether they be distractive behaviors or behaviors that make me feel like I'm productive, behaviors that are busy, not productive. And I watch these things time and time again. So, where do you see people standing in their own way? Where do you see people really consistently sabotaging themselves with very similar behaviors?
Yeah. Back out because as I hear you give me my words back, I want to caveat that because I think you and I as entrepreneurs know that there are a lack of commas under which it's very problematic, right? So yeah, there is, I am being a little flippant around this, right? If you're under a certain income or asset level or net worth level, this is very challenging. And to hear me say it doesn't matter would be really frustrating. So I want to back out and just say we've all been to that situation where my family had expenses and I didn't have the resources to cover it. And that was we're not finding flow state at that moment, right? This is a very panicky oriented, like, where's my food coming from? How do I make sure that there's electricity in my house? How do I make sure that I get gas in my car to go to my client meeting so that I can get paid and do this? So there is a minimum threshold over which, and you can call it Maslow's hierarchy of need, or there is a happiness research that happiness does increase linearly with income up to a certain threshold. And then income and happiness is not a linear relationship. It slows down.
Scott Galloway talks a lot about that.
Yeah,
And he
you got
talks about how at a certain point, and it's changed in the last 10 years, it used to be right around $70,000 annually. That since COVID, a few other things,
it
that
needs to be a
number's
little bit,
changed.
that number's a little bit bigger. If we assume you've gotten to whatever that number is where the coefficient of the change, money and happiness has started to slow, we're above that threshold. It is true that for some people, what has driven them to create the resources, again, is not money related. It's something else. I think athlete that's driven themselves, some of that is money related, but some of that is who I really want to be seen as the best at, right? And money is just a marker, but also is fastest man. Some of those, same is true in music or law, or want to be seen as the best. And that's driven them through all the challenging times that are required to experience to get to the highest levels. But above a certain threshold, it, it feels like there is folks who feel like they should study money and wealth and come up with strategies to do a good job. So they're coming from a should perspective. I was told I should get a financial advisor and work on this process so I'm going to be okay. And there's people who are passionately interested in optimizing. I really want excellence in every area of my life. And I believe in the mental optimization that comes from studying areas, physical, mental, emotional, career, wealth is just another area. Those conversations are a little different. The folks who are in the middle or a little bit on the should spectrum, they will sabotage themselves all the time in terms of these are the steps that you need to follow to stay on track with the goals that you had for yourself. And the sabotage comes in. I've got a client, husband and wife, young family, making good money, that lots of commas on the page, and had laid out goals for themselves to separate some of the risk that they had associated with their business. If I own a business, my net worth is tied up in the business, and something happens to the business, if I never got money out, I run into challenge. You got to be profitable in the business, have enough to pull it out and invest it and not spend it, right? This is back to make money that you don't spend, that you set aside in some intelligent fashion that grows over time. And every time the money came out, something would stand between the money coming out and its investment account, like kitchen or family room or car, or always good expenses that needed to happen and not a willing trade off to say, and this is when you say no, right? And you experience a crappier kitchen for a longer period of time, or a older car for a longer period of time, and so then it's back to, it's hard to peel the layers on what is driving the need today versus tomorrow and that capability of making that decision. But it's in those decisions where the spending happens and either income slows. You see this, you and I have talked about this in your practice where people self-sabotage, right?
Mhm.
They're expanding to a point and there's discomfort that creates, and then they self-sabotage to a point where it gets them safely under that threshold again. And so income changes. And for many people, they imagine that the wealth problem in the future will come from making more without addressing the spending issue. So they have this expense creep, right? That, it's, I will be happy when, we all have that. I will be happy when I get a promotion and my salary goes from 120 to 150. And then they're on the other side of 150, and the actual dollar difference after some of the lifestyle has shifted and it's expanded some, and some of the convenience purchases and things, all of a sudden there isn't $30,000 more that they have on an annual basis to get to 300 grand over 10 years plus investment gains. Now they've got 500. It's really a much smaller number because while the income, I thought I'd be happy when, really doesn't show up on the other side because there's a spending creep that comes with it. So the spending increase feels like that's going to fix it. So that's where sometimes you see the hamster wheel of the hourly professional, engineer, CPA, attorney. I will be happy when I get my hourly rate from 400 to 500. And then my 2000 hours, think how much more I will make. And it's a tough game to really change the nature of your wealth situation by either working more hours or charging more. If you really don't have the ability to scale based on profitability, it's a tough deal to tamp down the expenses and increase your income.
And we see the same, and I see the same in my own practice, that I will be happy when, and it's a number on a scale. It's a number in a bank account. It is a number of followers. It is
Number of naps.
yeah, a number of naps, a number of Academy Awards, Emmys, Grammys, and all of these things. I will be happy when. And I think that is the underlying challenge for a lot, where it's this belief that somewhere in my future there's a thing that is not accessible to me now that will be when I am greater resourced, when I am, but the truth is, the fact that you believe it's not available to you in this moment,
Today.
today, now, with your current set of resources, with your current situation in your current relationship, whatever, means it's unlikely to be available to you when you hit whatever arbitrary number, well, whatever.
And I think that's back to our goal for today's conversation. The fear questions, avoid the fear question by putting that future happiness out there.
Mm.
That future happiness, I will be happy when, I will feel safe and secure when, I will feel abundance and wealth when, and I will put these positive attributes on my own experience of this plan. I will put it out in the future because I'm unwilling to deal with whatever fear issues are present today. You blame the future. I feel crappy today, but I will be happy in the future when, and that's to some degree how you're dealing with avoiding, well, before we get there,
Looking at the thing that is creating my problems today.
you're gonna need to be much more productive at a lower cost. And I don't mean as a widget, as a human being, having more impact that is rewarded typically financially at a lower cost because you don't really need to spend if your happiness comes from the work that you do and the impact that you have. So more value at a lower cost is what's going to scale in a way that creates a multiplier effect on your actual dollar wealth. That's going to come from entering into an abundant and peaceful and joyful and eager fashion or whatever it is that is you from a value today. You got to whatever you're afraid to talk about today that's getting in the way from a process standpoint, as a wealth manager, it's a tough conversation for me to have. But that's what we see often in our practice is, can you create an automated and systematic fashion of things that take place that you don't have to decide to do? Back to some of these things to automate habits, right? The more you can automate your habits, the easier it is. Because when your cognitive load is put on you to make a decision to physically take a step in your own interest, it's incredibly unlikely to take place. But if
Right.
you can have it happen where it's automatically moved from money you earned to money that you set aside, this is where people experience their employer's 401k plan. Right? If I set it up in an automatic fashion where $100 a month is set aside for my use in the future, at some point I reset to that lifestyle and it doesn't show up. There's a beautiful mathematical chart. People fall asleep at charts, but I call it the eat more kale tomorrow strategy. This is if you set your savings rate at whatever you can afford today. Everybody knows we need to eat kale. I'm going to eat more kale tomorrow. But how do you automatically make that happen? In the retirement world, if you set your savings rate today, whatever it is, 3%, but commit to celebrating your birthday, and the systems can now make this happen automatically where your 3% becomes 4% once a year. And I say, pick your birthday. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes when your raises happen in your company, so the week after. But most of us, our salary does increase, our income does increase. If keep your 3% on the increasing wage, that's one way to get there. But the exponential effect of taking that 3% and making 4% and then 5% over a saving horizon, all of a sudden it's a magical effect of how much money you end up with in the future. And you never really miss that additional 1% each year. Like the extra kale that you ate tomorrow, I'm not going to go to 10% today. I can't afford that. That seems super scary. I need my money. I got to cover my rent, my mortgage, and my car payment. I got college coming up and I might die. So I need life insurance. All the things that we have, it's a long list and I don't ever get to all of them. I got in my own life, I got stuff I'm supposed to do that I can't get to. I can commit to an automated process. Some of those things that could automate you more successful. But for many people, when they say, I will be happy or safe or successful or accomplished when in the future. And there's a money component. The risk is to get there. Can we work on present today? Because that will happen better, faster, easier in the future if we can flow state that today.
So it's more likely to happen. I don't have to actually do it. If I don't have to move the $100 from this account to that account, if I just never get that $100 and it goes over there, because that's the real challenge is if I have to do it, it is less likely to happen than if it happens automatically.
Yeah. And there's 100 examples, right? We as humans need to pick what are we magically accomplished and designed to do that has more positive effect on ourselves, our family, our community, that we can be rewarded. Where do we get and enter into flow states more often? And for most people, the management of their money is not their happy place.
No, I deal with this idea of fear. So this thing, and I deal with, and you'd be amazed. Actually, you wouldn't. People with quite a bit of resources who still won't open their mail. And I have always experienced that fear is a lack of clarity. Fear and overwhelm are always a lack of clarity. And because fear can't exist in the light, right? Fear cannot exist. You now have simply decisions that need to be made. And I watch people who are unaware of their true financial situation talk about their fear of it. And I think that is where we get to that place that you just talked about where I have a hard time making this thing because there's a lot of fear because I don't know. And so where do you see fear showing up in even well-resourced people that shows up and because there's fear, because there's a lack of clarity, people sabotaging their own financial growth?
I think some of the universe of folks that I talk to is a self screening process. It's very uncommon that somebody will seek me out who is afraid of the number. If somebody's afraid that they have a health issue, they don't go to the doctor to get examined, right? They don't get the data to help them. By the time somebody gets sent to me, I say, great, let's build a strategy to help you accomplish your goals, whatever they are. Dig out of debt, create wealth and resources for a charity that you love, have enough to take 10 naps and whatever your goals are. If it dig out of debt, get your arms around it and pick a structured process. If they're in a current situation because they're unable to confront it, they really don't want to talk to me because I'm going to ask them, hey, I need your spending. We're going to have to open these things up to go through the process to figure out what do you make? What do you spend? What do you own? What do you owe? And let's confront what is true because it's just data. Now we have a strategy. Is it $1,000 problem? Is it a $5,000 problem? It doesn't really. I worked with a couple. They both went through dental school. They were orthodontists. The total college debt in the household was $800,000
Crazy.
for them, right? Based on when they went to work full time, they were both going to make $250,000 to $300,000. Total household income was going to be 300 grand. So they could come up with a strategy to address it. So the size of the number, when people come to me and there's real fear around it, that's less common. There are people who come to me and they really just don't understand. They just need knowledge and information. And are there any tricks? What can I do? They've confronted it already to some degree. One of my clients had an employee, health issues, was out of work, a couple of spending challenges and dug a hole. And then the hole was compounding. Was willing to talk about it. For that person, it wasn't necessarily a fear of the number. There were other obstacles or roadblocks for that couple. When he came to the conversation, he didn't come with his wife. There was a strong pride issue that I was the provider and I dug myself this hole and I'm going to dig me out. Like he was working full-time overtime at his job to try to make as much hourly work as he could. And then he was driving Uber nights and weekends, try to dig out, right? It was going to kill him physically. He had a health issue and he was working so hard to dig out of his health issue. And so for him, it was less a fear issue about the issues. They were in an unlucky situation, but they did need to cut expenses. Then the resistance was, hey, you got anything that's not nailed down, you got to say no to, and you got to find different ways to take your whole living expense down. The number happened to be $1,000 a month, right? Based on how, and at some point you got to dig out because I know you're treading water now. You are servicing this thing, but you're going to die. Like this is going to kill you. And some of the ways to trim and cut, that's where he was unwilling to take action. Am I willing to move to a cheaper part of town or area? Am I willing to stop supporting the ability for my family to do certain things, right? Am I willing to cut in certain areas to get out and to be on the positive side of this cash flow in the future? That in that particular instance, there was resistance. For me, I often will see fear show up for the more accomplished part of the spectrum around the resources that they have created. It's almost like an extension of that imposter syndrome. I can't risk it. I don't let it go away. For most of us, we can't just make money and put it in a checking account and have it earn zero. It's got to grow to some degree. We have to do things with it that are rewarded with growth over time. And there are certain investors that they end up with resources and they're unwilling to take any risk with it because they can't see it go to zero. They're afraid that if it goes to zero, somehow there's a larger negative grief that they've experienced, or they won't be able to earn it back, or it's somehow, and they're trading that certainty today that it won't go away for certainty that they won't have enough in the future. Because we're planning for you're relatively healthy. We don't have any issues that you're telling me you're going to die at 70. We got to plan for this to last a pretty long time. We can't put it in a checking account or you got to cut your spending. Put it in a checking account. Eventually, inflation is going to start to eat in this and it is going to go down or go away. So you get to, I understand the future is far away and we got to discount it, but that's a certainty. I will tell you, your 200 grand today is going to cost you 400 grand at some point, and it just won't be enough, right? You can't just put it in a can and watch it disappear. Some of that fear, some of that fear can be a skill and an education and a training where we can create opportunities to moderate the risk to some degree, spread it around, don't put it all in one place. It's not gambling where you put it all in black. There are good places and storehouses of value that can do well over long periods of time. The risk is not zero, but with skill and education, could you be willing? But I see that as a fear all the time. Back to the creator that I mentioned earlier, was paid a delightful sum, has accomplished a great deal, an incredibly creative, super productive individual, and is unwilling to take any risk with it. He's willing to trade to some degree. I don't want it to go down. And if I need more, I'll just create more stuff. Right? I will fill the gap from a Cedar standpoint.
So I've now attached my identity to this amount of resource. And if the resource goes away, then that what that means about me, what it says about me, my fear of my ability to recreate it, to recreate the same sort of success. I like the connection to the imposter syndrome, which is not a fear of failure, it's a fear of success. Because if I succeed and it was a fluke, I just got lucky, now I have to replicate that success. And when I can't because I just got lucky the first time, I won't be able to. So that fear that I have this and now I know it's going to disappear slowly, but I can't risk it. Where does culture, upbringing, the way you were raised around like the flow of money, the way it comes, the way it goes? I remember a long time ago hearing that the money you have in your pocket right now is not the same money you had in your pocket a month ago. The money that's in your bank account now is not the same money that was there 3 months ago. Money has to move and needs a job. And I need to be comfortable with seeing that the money viewed as energy flows in order because money needs a job. It needs to, nothing likes to be stagnant. Nothing grows in stagnant water. Nothing thrives in stagnation.
That is a good question. I think it comes up in a lot of different areas of our life where patterns of thought, behavior, and action are inherited around what did we grow up experiencing, whether it's food modeling, study modeling, achieve modeling, money modeling is the same. It can be a very insightful conversation to explore what were the conversations that were going on around money as you were growing up. Was it an exciting and interesting and open conversation? Was it scary and shameful? Were there stress around it? And as a 6-year old, when you're adjacent to stress around money, you don't really understand where the stress came from or how important it was. You just infected with the stress associated with it.
Right.
And then you attach those two items together, stress and money together, regardless of the fact that it could have been, man, I'm really stressed. I want to grow my account from 1 million to 2 million. It could have been positive stress, but as a growing human, when you're exposed to some of these things, you see the behaviors associated with your people, whatever that context can be. And that's to some degree an inherent bias around what you think is true around process. So it's my argument that this inheritance of behavior and mindset and thought process around any achievement oriented area of success that you want in your life is really the valuable inheritance from athletes who have kids who become successful athletes. There are clearly some advantages that they have genetically. If I'm the child of somebody who's 7 feet tall and a basketball player, I'm likely to be tall. So there's some genetic advantages. And there clearly could be, hey, if you're a kid of a professional athlete, is it likely that you're going to get more looks? You could certainly make that argument. I tend to, because what I see in the wealth space, assume it's much more around the mindset. Right? If you authentically want excellence in the space, this is the kind of beliefs that you need to have and the behaviors that you need to have and the process that you need to follow. And this is what it feels like. This is what it took for me to get there. And this is how you expand your sense of accomplishment and identity in a positive way that you can sustain over a long period of time. I think that's a much more common explanation of why successful people have successful kids, because the same is true in money. So we do a lot in the wealth management space for the people who have a lot of excess resources. We talk about the resources that will outlive you and what is that inheritance process? What do you want it to look like? And the thing that I'd start with is that the most important resource that you can hand down to future generations, even generations that you've never met, is not the number or the financial resource or asset, but the mindset and process and beliefs and culture and values that you were applying that created that. Because regardless of how you created and whatever space it was in, there are certain outcomes that we don't have the control over, right? In terms of, hey, I worked really hard in a certain area, but it was hit by a meteor. That's outside of my control.
Right.
But the values and the beliefs and the process and the hard work and the sense of identity around the joy of doing the work and what that meant over a long period of time, the self-made entrepreneurs that are out there, that is the gift. If you can get kids to, unfortunately, I'll say it the negative side, there's a lot of parents that will overwork to create the opportunity so that their kids don't have to work as hard. That's the promise. I really want to create the space where the world that my kids enter into is much easier than what I had. And that gets extended to people who build beautiful cement businesses or painting businesses or roofing contractors or HVAC companies that I just want to create the opportunity that the world is better than the one that I grew up in. And then the world that these kids grow up in is just not that hard. They don't learn the same lessons of challenge and growth and opportunity. They grow up in a space where everything is a choice and everything is an opportunity. And there is no constraint or challenge or haven't handed down the real estate gift of the values, right? This is where generationally wealth can start to disappear because the future generations didn't really inherit that mindset.
Just like in the gym, the growth happens from the exertion. The growth happens from the stress. The growth happens from the work. The growth doesn't happen when it's easy. Growth doesn't happen. You don't develop a disciplined mindset when it's easy. You don't develop habits of discipline when it's easy.
And this is where I love flow state, where you and I connected, right? When research first came out around flow states, flow states don't come up in a stress free environment. They don't come up in a challenge free environment. They come up in a beautiful balance between challenge and accomplishment that takes your entire focus and experience.
Right.
It's that you're connected to all things in a fashion, you're just much more productive at that moment than you are when you're pulled out of it. So there are lots of beautiful stories of two organizations pursuing the same goal. One has all the resources in the world. The other is short of resources and can't scrape together. And it's duct tape and chewing gum. And some people are going unpaid and they pull it up because the constraints force them to be creative in a way that the other side didn't. And there's all sorts of stories around that process produces. The issue of the constraint and the challenges and the beauty of those flow states, whether it's breath work and creating those constraints and challenge, or I imagine the conversation with surfers is the same. You don't experience the beauty and connection of all things in the middle of a tube the first time you go out. It's just too hard.
And
But
you're going to get crushed 1,000 times before you experience that thing. But the moment you experience that thing, every single time the Pacific Ocean nearly killed you, makes it worth it.
it
And
can't be
all
too easy, right? You can't be bunny slopes on the wave because you just bored, right? You never get back to that
right,
space.
there's that skills challenge balance that is a flow trigger. It's got to be just pushing past your current level of ability. And I want to go back to something that you said earlier, talking about the real inheritance is that mindset, that story. And I think about kids who grow up in money conversations that are paradoxical, right?
Mm.
We want money. Money is security, money is safety, money is identity, money is all these things. And then money is the root of all evil. Billionaires are evil. There's no great way. And so we look at money people and go, those are bad people, these rich people, other things. But at the same time, I want things, I want nice things. I want people to think that I have money. Culturally, we're told people with more resources are more valuable humans, are higher classes of humans until a certain point at which you become like evil. And so if I believe that money makes one evil, that resources, that abundance creates turns one into evil, I will undoubtedly sabotage myself and create those things that I buy the things right now because right now it's important that people see me in a way, and I am actually
Not
sacrificing.
too much, but just enough. I want to look successful, but not too successful because I'm not an evil rich bastard.
Right.
I'm successful and competent in my space. I'm merchant class, but I'm not a prince. I don't want to be the evil rich person. And I think it's a real challenge from the conflicting messages. The beauty of what we do and the fair exchange that we get, the in the trades, there's this beautiful message of dirty hands, clean money. I'm doing fair labor and I'm getting fairly compensated for this work. Does that mean that if you're the successful business owner that because you don't work with your hands anymore, you're now dirty money? Like when does that cross over where your success as a welder, 75 bucks an hour is fine, but $100 an hour, you're a dick? Where that crossover is. But if that's evil out there, when do you start self-sabotaging or being afraid to talk about money because it seemed like money was the root of all evil, or
Right.
it's always that other side that's attempting political ideology, tribe, whatever it is, right? Pointing to the other side. They're trying to do this. They're trying to do that because it's rich, crazy person trying to do X or Y. Whatever it is out there is very tempting to have that sour grapes almost approach that I'm willing to work really hard and do, but that person who has the money is not valued to.
Or oh, now you're too good for us. Now you're, and we watch like families do this all the time as we watch families say that abundance is the thing, but as soon as somebody moves beyond that moment, now all of a sudden, oh, now
Weird
you're too good
drama
for
because
us, or
one kid has a really beautiful large house and the others don't. And coming over for Christmas has extra energy associated with it. Just icky. You can't. Why is this so? I just want you to enjoy my space that I worked so hard to accomplish, and it just doesn't have the same process.
right? No, all of these things, money. And this is a great first conversation, a great first episode, because we see that money and being able to talk about it and the energy around it and the stories that we were brought up with can feel as taboo as money, sex, politics. It's interchange of culture, of upbringing, of religion, of values, of money stories. And I think it's a really valuable conversation. And if somebody is listening and they're ready to start having a conversation about changing their relationship to this energy that we call money, but really is the outcome that I want for my life. If they were to begin asking one question, what would that be?
I wanted to get started down the path of wealth management mastery and entering into wealth management flow state more often. Yeah, I think for most conversations, it's really what does that mean in terms of your goal or objective, right? What would it mean to be wealthy or abundant or have accomplished a financial goal that you laid out for yourself?
Number aside, what would wealth feel like?
Describe it, right? Sight, sound, smells, activities, behaviors, so that you can start to journal through what does that mean, right? And why is that true? And how important, real, true is that around this process? Because the, as much as I wish I was a pill or a magic wand where I could take $1 of value that you created and eliminate the hard work of whatever it is that you're going to go through to accomplish these goals, the hard work is always going to be present. That's where the flow state gets triggered and taking you through the journey and supporting your process. If the goal, what are you trying to accomplish? And for you, there may be an actual dollar number, right? For me, the goal is X amount. It could be debt is zero. It could be $10,000 in my checking account. It could be the first in my class to get $1 million, or it doesn't matter. But part of it, I think, is to expand the sense of the goal to as many non-financial things as what does that mean? What are you doing? Why is that important? Some of that follow on clarity to get clear.
The
Is it
10 nap work week,
the 10
right?
nap work week?
Or the sandal tan, right? So if I have a sandal tan, then I am living the life that feels abundant and feels like wealth to me. If I have a sandal tan, that means I'm living the life that feels abundant for me. So whatever those things are, divorced from the number, what would feel like wealth for you? So that's the question to begin asking.
Yeah, I think once you have clarity there, then as you get clarity and excitement and trigger that, the vulnerability then to open up and ask the universe for help. There's teams of people that want that goal from you. Like my dopamine, it's come from not my goal, but when my clients get there. If we can architect and tweak and improve and have a positive impact on somebody's ability to get to their process that really triggers this flow state where the process is really working, especially the hard ones. Husband and wife worked really hard. They toiled a bunch. The retirement looked okay. And then he has Parkinson's and she has Alzheimer's. This is a catastrophic issue, but the process of accomplishing this, if we can set a process to support them, there's teams of people whose joy comes from jumping in and helping. But you, as the receiver of that support, you got to have some clarity around where are you going? Where are you pointing? I'm happy to grab an oar and pull, but we need a direction. Otherwise, I'm going to get bummed if we're going in circles.
Right.
And go somewhere else.
So, especially if I'm the only one rowing. If I'm the only,
Or
I am happy to.
I'm rowing forward and you're rowing backward.
And now we're just turning in circles.
Stay at a put. I found professionals in just about every specialty, law, tax, financial, wealth, real estate. Like there are professionals at the top of their game that their measuring stick is not the money that they make, but the people that they're able to impact in a positive fashion. They're out there for sure. But we need you to have some clarity and work on that so that we can point and jump in and pick up the oar and go. And in my own journey with your help, it's been that where do my flow states start to emerge through my workday or after, and where does that start to happen? And that expansion of my own goals, it's my sense, but I'm not sure what your If I was to ask you, somebody comes to you from a, hey, I'm curious about using flow state tools, triggers, and breath work and components, and really mental optimization, I think is going to be a key component that's going to get me to there. And I think one of the measuring sticks I'm going to use as well. What do you suggest that people do to start to really gain clarity around this area?
It's That's a great question, and it's always around for me, it's always around what will you do with it? Like, why do you want that? What do you believe
Sure,
you
the
will be
impact of it.
experiencing or can experience or can do with it? A giant pile of money for the sake of having a giant pile of money is the worst goal there is. It is simply the worst goal. I want
It's a little prickly to swim it, I got to tell you.
But it is a catastrophically bad goal. Studies show that if your goal is money, if your target is money, you are 3 times more likely to commit fraud. You are 4 times more likely to steal or to lie to all these things if the goal is a number. So I just like you, clarity is where it is. What is it that that number says that you now get to do, you now get to be, you now get to have? And let's get real clear about what those things are, why you want them, and what is the purpose. I want to have it.
Could be things go away, right? Fear, shame, right? It could be things that you're seeking, could be things that you're avoiding, could be clarity, confidence that comes from if I've accomplished this, I've learned the lessons to accomplish. Could be lots of different answers to that.
Right.
But we could post up a document that there was in quality assurance, they often ask the 5 whys. Why did something happen? Hey, there's an event. Why did that event happen? And then they ask that why to that 5 more times. Why is that true? We shipped a car with a bad carburetor. Why is that true? The carburetor was poorly designed. Why is that true? The carburetor was poorly designed because we outsourced it. We didn't control it. Why is that true? In an effort to hit a profit margin target, we outsource it because whatever the process is, by the 5th time, you often get to the root cause of an issue. So I don't know if there's a 5 why sort of template that we could post up or the kinds of questions or prompts that would help people as a resource at the end of this.
And it's the same. Why do I want that? Why do I want that? Why do I want what is and at some point we get to the root of
My
impact that I
goal is
want to have.
$1 million at age 30. Why do you want $1 million at age 30? I feel like that would help me feel accomplished. Why do you want to feel accomplished?
What is accomplished? And so all of these things. And so begin to ask, what do I want? Why do I want it? And dig into that. Dig into, even more importantly, what do I believe abundant is? What does that
was
look
abundant?
like? And not in terms of money, not in terms of a number on a piece of paper, but what does your life look like when you get what does that feel like? Joe
Right.
Dispenza talks about this, right? It's not the number has far less to do with anything than how I want to feel when I get there. So, how do you want to feel when you get there? What's getting there going to feel like? And once you can identify what getting there is going to feel like, you can reverse engineer that and arrive at a number.
Sure. And then you got to be able to pull some of that forward today to embody some of that today. There's
But it's got to be a vision that pulls you forward because pushing never works. It's got to be a vision that pulls you forward. And that's the really the most powerful aspect. So, what a cool way to start this off. I am so excited about the future conversations. So, if something sparked for you today, please join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. John O'Day, thank you so much for being here.
my pleasure. Looking forward to 100 more.
Thanks for being there for the flow of money. We will see you all on the next episode. Thanks for listening to the Flow of Money podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more about John and Dave at theflowofmoneypodcast.com. If you liked this episode, share it with someone who's ready to step into flow. If you're interested in sponsorship or collaboration, we'd love to hear from you. See you next time.
Hey, before you go, this is John O'Day here for the quick note. I am affiliated with Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC, and my investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Dave Gieselman, my partner, is not a registered broker dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services. Any opinions are mine and Dave's. These opinions are not necessarily those of Raymond James. Every investor situation is unique, and you should consider your investment goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon before making any investment decisions. Neither Raymond James Financial Services nor Raymond James Financial Advisors render any tax advice. Tax matters should be discussed with your tax advisor. This podcast is for investor education purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment advice. Consult your investment advisor before making investment decisions.